of nuclear annihilation that they've been threatening us with for years and years and years. And here, not in the studio this week because of the emergency situation in the country, I have my wonderful co-host, Emily Schrader, who is a human rights activist and journalist and Iran expert, Shoshanna Keats-Jaskel, who is the founder of Chochmat Nashim, fighting for women's rights, and very, very special guest, Lily Moo, who is an Iranian human rights activist in exile, who is joining us today for a very special episode. But before we start, let's look at some scenes in what's going on right now in Tehran and around Iran. Okay, so chaos. It's chaos here. 19 people have died in Israel since the beginning of the ballistic missile attacks on us, Jews and Arabs alike. And here we are under attack from this very toxic regime. And Lily, I want to start with you. You're looking at what's going on. You're looking at the reaction of the world. I know that many Iranians all around the world are seeing this as their opportunity, the opportunity to get back their country. How are you feeling in these moments?
Good morning to you and everyone in Israel and across the globe who are watching this or whatever time it is that you're witnessing these stories today. First and foremost, I want to say it's heartbreaking that the Islamic Republic has brought this war onto my nation and my country, onto Iran. Iranian civilians have been held captive under that regime for the past 45 years. And every time that regime has failed itself, it has officially attacked, actually, missile attacks on Iranian people. And it has also happened during the past 3 days, as they've been failing to retaliate the way they thought they can against the IDF. But we will get to that. I want to say Iranian people are seizing this opportunity. They have been preparing to rise up against the regime the moment the regime is at its weakest, and today this regime is at its weakest. It's hollowing from Mossad is in every corner. I mean, from Ismail Haniyeh onwards, that regime has been on eggshells around itself. Even in their own private rooms, they cannot have their own conversations. Everybody is an enemy in the eyes of Khamenei and his disciples. And as we are witnessing the surgical removal of the IRGC heads and their family members and whatever leftovers are leaving and fleeing the country, Iranian people are rejoicing. They are absolutely afraid. They are traumatized at the sight and the sound of war, witnessing their family members and businesses dismantled and just deprecated is heartbreaking, but this is an opportunity, and they see this as an opportunity. They're all coming out shouting at the dictator. Last night at 9 p.m., we witnessed across Iran, everybody, Iranians getting together behind their windows, behind the dark rooms, calling out for the return of Reza Pahlavi, calling out for the downfall of Khamenei, calling out, blaming this regime for this war. Israel is here to aid Iranian people move forward from this tyrannic regime. And that's the view of all Iranians, most Iranians. Sure, Iranian people are traumatized, but they want to seize this opportunity to get rid of this regime. And if non-Iranians outside of Iran, Marxist Islamists outside of Iran want to whitewash this into this, suddenly Khamenei's life is a life that matters and his human rights suddenly matter and his friends and his allies and, oh please, hashtag Kotlet, everyone in Iran is celebrating. Honestly.
That's incredible. Lily, and do you believe that there's a viable Iranian alternative government and opposition that is set and ready to take over?
Prince Reza Pahlavi is a uniting figure outside of Iran and inside of Iran. Iranian people are calling for the return of the Pahlavi. They're calling for the return of the Queen, and they're looking forward to the recrowning. and crowning Reza Pahlavi into his official position as king. Please, Emily, take this. Came out very clearly, very openly, targeting all of the countries across the globe, openly saying anybody who stands with Israel, whether or not they're taking attack against us, are our enemy, and they are exposed to our attacks. They have exposed themselves. Any country in the world that is okay with Israel existing is now our enemy. Remember, IRGC members are active in all of the countries in Europe. They are active in all of the countries in Africa. They're walking around. They have come through the borders from South America into America in their thousands. And a threat, imminent threat of the Islamic Republic is out there threatening the general public of the West. It's not just the war with Iran and Israel. Iranian people do not want this war. Iranian casualties, Iranian death of innocent people has already taken place. Israel is in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Bat Yam, children have died. No Iranian wants to see a child die anywhere on the planet. And this is the situation we're in. For over 3 years, Iranian people have laid down through the diaspora the groundwork for the international community to step in, step forward, and call out this regime for what it is, call their ambassadors, call them out, and ask, today is their chance. Today, right now, is their chance. It's Monday. It's the first day of the week. It's 3 days into the war. The attack on the Western society and Western governments has already been declared by Khamenei and his government. Why they're at their weakest, by the way. So when a regime is suicidal, they're not just going to take themselves out. They're willing to take everybody out. And this is why it was important to make sure that the nuclear facilities are not usable. It's unbelievable that I am actually saying these words out loud because I was prominently against Iranian infrastructure such as nuclear facilities getting hit because of the devastating natural disasters that could follow through. I've yet to see how all of this is tearing out, but so far there's not been any spillage. Thank God.
That's incredible. Lily, just to follow on from your point, in terms of the Iranian diaspora, there's a lot of very powerful Iranians around the world, especially America. Do you think they are also using now their political clout to push the White House to join in and just get rid of this regime?
There is a bit of a polarized situation with the diaspora, especially in the West. In America, we have had NIAC actively advising administrations like Obama's and Biden's. And during the Masa Amini uprising and the Women Life Freedom National Revolutionary Uprising that took place 3 years ago, we tried to dismantle NIAC. We tried to call them out. Other Iranian diaspora members who were active in lobbying against the regime and for the Iranian people were actively trying to advise the American administrations and governments against siding with the regime, against appeasement. At the moment, I would say in the US, NUFTI is a reliable organization that supports King Reza Pahlavi, Prince Reza Pahlavi, well, His Royal Highness, anybody who wants to put any titles. For all I know, Iranian people love the Pahlavi family. I personally love them. And forget, Iranian people are not just migrants. We are living in exile because our country is under threat. It's been living under devastating atrocity after atrocity. Everybody is currently focusing on the fact that human life is being taken out, innocent human life is being taken out in Iran at the hands of Israel. Where were they when in 2019, a flood that washed 2/3 of Iran because of bad infrastructure, because the Islamic Republic built homes, actual resident homes on riverbeds that were dried for about 10 years. And then 10 years later, in 2019, a flood that could have been directed properly because they cut down the jungles of the north of Iraq, washed down the country. Millions of animals, farm animals were killed. Millions of Iranians were displaced from their homes. Iranian women had no access to any sanitary products. Where were all of these feminist, woman last freedom, kafia wearing people now? Where were they then? Where were they during the past 2 years since the proxies of the Islamic Republic took action, materialized everything we were warning about? Where were they? Now suddenly in their stories you have Fatanam Irano, please. Every time they it stinks of Palestine. That's all I'm gonna say.
We also see now a lot of the opposition to the Israeli activities. I mean, we've seen it in London outside of the Islamic Republic embassy. There were protesters, and the most common flag they had wasn't the Iranian flag, even the Islamic regime's flag. It was the Palestinian flag. These are the same. It's the same cult. It's the same Free Palestine movement that's presenting themselves as somehow defending Iran or defending Iranians, which is insane because the majority of Iranians, of course, as Lily stated, are against them. And where were these people when all of these other things were happening inside of Iran, even a few weeks ago, not so recently, not so far away in the past, there were all these slew of explosions across Iran. None of them were Mossad. It wasn't a sabotage operation. It was because the Islamic Republic continues to store things in an irresponsible way, especially military things. And it's been fire after fire after fire after disaster after explosion. People have died. Dozens have died in Bandar Abbas. There was a massive explosion because they were trying to import explosive materials for their rockets, for their ballistic missiles. It was stored improperly. It exploded. Dozens of people died. Everyone was silent. Of these same people who were protesting in support of Iran were completely silent about this, if they're even aware that it happened in the first place. I mean, the hypocrisy is crazy. But I do want to say just one more thing that I think is really important to know, and that is that the regime is incredibly weak because of the successes of Israel in targeting IRGC targets as well as IRGC terrorists themselves. But when the regime is weak, it's also important to note that in the past they have used these opportunities to try to frame Israel as killing civilians. They are no stranger to false flag operations.